Helpful for life.
Which leads us to our next major aspect of timing, making sure you have everything you need prepared and where you need it when you need it. If you don't do this, you may end up at that critical moment where something could burn or otherwise get ruined because you weren't prepared and ready when you needed to be. One example of this is grilling. If you don't have a clean plate to remove your food off onto, then you're going to either be playing hot potato all the way inside, or you may end up with some overcooked food. Another example of this is when you're making that roux for your mac and cheese sauce. If you don't have that milk ready to go in at the right time, you may overcook your roux. You'll learn more about that one later. Of course, as with a lot of cooking terms, there is a fancy French phrase for this. It's called mise en place. And of course, I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but you just have to deal with it. Translated to English, this means putting in place or everything in its place or setup. But it's not just setup, it's a mindset. To give you an idea of what mise en place can look like, think of a restaurant like Chipotle or Subway. They have all the ingredients they need, quickly within an arm's reach, already prepped, cut up, cooked if needed, ready to go. Or you may have seen this on a cooking show. They have everything pre-measured, already prepared and cut up if needed. In these little bowls, they just dump it in. They make it look so easy. Now, you don't have to go as far as the pros do, but you should definitely incorporate some of these tips into your cooking. However, it is fun to prep like a pro every now and then, especially if you're cooking for an audience. I just have a little dash of this, a little sprinkle of that, and finally I'll finish it with some of this. What's that I'm doing? Just practicing my mise en place. Parlez-vous français? No? Pardon. Anyways, the first step towards mise en place is reviewing your recipe or whatever it is you're going to cook. So if you have a recipe, read through it. But if you don't have a recipe, write or type down everything that needs to be done. I know you're thinking, I could do that in my head. Well, yes, you can, but guess what? Even the pros make mistakes. So take a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds, it's not that long, and write everything down so you know what you need to do, you get the timing right, and you don't forget anything. Then get out all of the ingredients and tools that you will need so they are out and ready to go. Make sure to also grab a produce bag, an empty bowl, a plate, or something to put all of your scraps on to take them into the trash instead of just throwing them on the counter like an animal. Once you've got the stuff out, do any prep work you can in advance. Wash what needs washing, measure what needs measuring, cut what needs cutting, and so on. You may be surprised to know that a lot of cooking is just about the prep work. Restaurants actually have entire shifts of people that come in hours before opening just to prepare stuff for the cooking day. The bottom line is that the more you do in advance, the easier it's going to be when it comes to applying the heat. Pro tip for you, you can actually do a lot of the prep work earlier that day or even earlier that week for certain ingredients. This is a great way to save a lot of time and hassle before that weeknight meal or before that party you're hosting. And I would be remiss if I didn't sneak in a couple of pro tips from Mama G, also known as my mom, who's been cooking her entire life and hosting countless parties. I got two of them for you. The first one is to freeze some of your prepped ingredients. And the second one is to freeze entire meals. For that first one, freezing prepped ingredients, take, for example, when you're cutting up an onion. Yeah, you're gonna cut up these onions for the meal you're using right now, but why not cut up some extra onions while you're doing it? You got the dirty cutting board, you got the dirty knife. Cut those up and freeze them to make prep time that much easier in the future for another meal. Now, when you're freezing entire dishes, some dishes you can actually cook the entire thing in advance and they keep very well and you just reheat them the day of. Other dishes you may partially cook and then apply the extra heat when you get there or have, the next day when you want to serve it. And other things you may actually not cook at all and you just have it all prepped and ready to go to apply the heat when it's time. Another fun one is the slow cooker. That is one way to cook something and prep it and do it all way in advance and finish all of the cleaning long before the guests come over. And lastly, some dishes even taste better when they're prepared in advance. Marinating is a great example of that. So that's enough of the Mama G tips for now, so back to your regularly scheduled programming. After the prep work, group your prepped ingredients, your raw ingredients, and your tools that you need for each dish, group them all together and out on the counter. Even better if you put them in the order that you're going to be using them. Of course, if some of those ingredients need to be refrigerated and you're gonna have them out for more than 15 minutes, it's probably best if you put them in the fridge or freezer where they're easily accessible. For our next tip, pay attention while you're cooking. Now, this probably doesn't need to be said, but it actually does because you'd be surprised how often people don't do this. This is probably the #1 cause of injuries in the kitchen, whether it be a cut or a burn or, just general flusteredness. So, don't be distracted. Don't be on your phone, walking in and out of the kitchen a lot, having a heated argument with that silly significant other of yours. Just tell them that you're right and they should respect you. Anyways, I digress. So distracted cooking leads to lost fingers or just cut fingers or burns. So pay attention. Not only will it reduce the injuries, but it'll increase the chances that you can catch an error before it gets too far along. Lastly, move things that aren't relevant to the dish you're cooking out of the way. Of course, this means the crap and clutter that you probably have around your house, or at least I do, but it also means when you're preparing one dish, move all of the stuff for that other dish out of the way.